Hello everyone, welcome to another DST video. Today I'm going to be talking about how to make a character using this system. If you don't know anything about this system and you're finding this video as your first one, well, let me break it down for you. Basically, I've created a new leveling up system for D&D. It starts with a fleshed out character builder that brings you through race selection, your background selection, and then level 1. And after that, you'll be building upon your character in the same way that you would for a typical D&D character. Instead of gaining features as you level up in a very linear or pre-chosen manner, you'll be able to build your character together by picking different branches and paths from the skill trees available to you through the different character trees. These will be referred to as nodes, and I will be describing how all of this works as we go through the character builder. But the first thing we have to do is check out the character sheet. As you can see, this character sheet looks a little bit different, and I'll be explaining every part of it as we go through the video. But the first thing I'm going to mention is where you will go ahead and write down the name of your character in the top left. I'm choosing the name Mira Okwaldi. It doesn't mean anything. I'm just choosing it because I needed a name for this character. Then in the top right, we've got a list of 8 different statistics, one of which is the player playing the character's name, which is me. So I'm going to write down Dexdorg here. We'll fill in the rest of these as we go through the race and background selection. The next thing we have to do is pick a race for this character. To do so, we check out this chart here. And again, if you want to check out any of these things, you can check the description below where I have linked a Google Docs that has everything you need available for free to download and try out any of the parts that you might find interesting. And if there's any sections that you think don't work according to your table, feel free to change them and use them however you wish. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to be explaining this system in the manners that I use it at my table. We're going to discuss how this race chart works. As you can see, there are columns, which are the race column, that's the name of the race. The size column, that's how big the race is. Trait A and trait B, these are 2 features. Each race gets 2 features, one from trait A and one from trait B. A stat increase, this is a +1 to one of the core 6 stats. They have a speed locked in, this is somewhere between 25 and 40 feet of movement speed. And then there's 3 subrace options, and this is basically where your character grew up. So if we go through each row, I can explain how this system works by just giving an example from the elf row. So the elf is an elf, their size is medium, they have 60 feet of dark vision and advantage against being charmed, and they have the ability to meditate instead of sleeping to only require 4 hours per long rest. They get a +1 to their dexterity, and their speed is 30 feet. And then from the 3 subrace options, you could either be a high elf with a +2 to your charisma and proficiency in persuasion, a wood elf, a +2 to your dexterity with proficiency in perception, or a dark elf, which is a +3 to dex with 90 feet of dark vision instead of the typical 60. And so you'll only be allowed to pick one of the 3 subrace options when you pick your character up, but there is another customizability setting for this feature. Half-breeds are extremely supported using this set of races that I have in front of us. What they'll do for making one is take trait A from one parent, trait B from the other parent, and then you get to just pick the size of whichever parent you'd like. You then select your speed from one of the parent and the stat boost from the other, and you'll choose one of the 6 available subrace options from either parent. So, for example, if we wanted to be a half-elf, I've marked out all the other ones so that it's easier to see, we would be half-elf, half-human. Our size could be medium, and technically either one gives you medium. And for this example, I've chosen trait A from elves, so 60 feet of dark vision and advantage against being charmed, and trait B from humans to gain a feat. Our stat increase is dexterity, and our speed increase is 30 feet. Again, we could have picked 30 from the elf and wisdom from the human instead. And then from these 6 subrace options, so high half-elf, wood half-elf, cliff half-elf, dark half-elf, or village half-elf, we get to pick one of those options. Even though there's 6 available to us, we only still get to pick one. So that's an example on how half-breeds work using this race chart, but for our character, I'm going to instead pick a full breed. We're going to be playing as a Hingla for this example. These are medium-sized creatures with echolocation of 60 feet. They can also hear up to 200 feet away if they focus. And whenever you roll a 1 on the d20, you can re-roll it and take the new roll. They get a +1 to their dexterity and have 25 feet of move speed. And then we have 3 options available to us: a village Hingla, which gets a +1 to all our mental stats and a +1 to a stat of our choice; a hill Hingla, which gets a +2 to their constitution and an extra 5 feet of ground speed; or a traveler Hingla, which gets a +2 to wisdom and proficiency in survival and nature. I'm going to choose the village Hingla, which means we can go ahead and mark that on our character sheet and put a +1 in dexterity, a +1 in charisma, a +1 in intelligence, a +1 in wisdom, and a +1 to a stat of our choice. So marking down the racial traits, we've written down echolocation. If focusing, can hear up to 200 feet away, and reroll nat ones to take the new result. This is of course just shorthand for what those abilities mean, and if you ever need to check them over, you could write them down in more detail on the back of the character sheet, or just write it fully out in any of these spaces that I have put on the character sheet for them. I've also written our speed as 25 feet. I've given us a portrait of a Hingla, and I've written down village Hingla under race. Size is medium, and I've given us just average weight and height for a female Hingla. Next, let's go mark down those stat increases. Now, you'll note that this stat increases looks quite a bit different than the typical D&D character sheet stats look like. And that is because my system, you'll be getting a lot of ability score improvements and other small stat increases throughout your career. Literally almost double what you would get on a typical D&D character. And so, in order to facilitate not having to erase and rewrite your numbers constantly, I have devised this system here, where basically you fill in the dots of the increases you get, and then it shows your character what the skills are at. So let's go ahead and mark those down. We got a +1 to dexterity, a +1 to intelligence, a +1 to wisdom, and a +1 to charisma. And then we also got a +1 to any stat, which I'm going to put in intelligence because I do plan on at some point during my career casting spells on this character. And now you might be noting that there are 5 pre-filled in dots on every single one of these stats. The lowest modifier you can ever get on any skill is a -3 typically. Why have I done this on the character sheet? Well, we'll explain it when we go to the background, which is the next place we've got to go. To choose your background, we'll be going to this chart, which again, just like everything else that I'm going to be talking about today, is linked in that Google Docs folder in the description, where you can download these and try them out to your own heart's content. The background is the first spot in the character builder where we get to check out how the node system works for DST, D&D skill trees. This is the first skill tree that you'll be going through, and unlike your character classes, which all have unique skill trees, every character will use the same background skill tree, and that is starting in the middle with the first node background. This gives you a +5 to all your stats, which is why each one of the stats on the character sheet have 5 pre-filled in nodes, because every character will always start with at least 5 filled in. Then you get to pick 10 more nodes from here, but only one of them can be red. And basically how you go about doing this is you look at any node that you currently have access to. So right now we have access to the background node, and we can pick any feature that is connected to that feature and gain that as a node. So we have 10 nodes to pick from, but the options available to us right now are only these 4. A +3 to intelligence, a +3 to constitution, a +3 to wisdom, or a +3 to charisma. My first choice and my first node will be this +3 to constitution, meaning we can now go over to our character sheet and give our constitution a +3. Next, for my second node, I'm going to go ahead and pick up vengeful. And these 4 core nodes on the edges of your first choices are what determine what you call your background. But what does vengeful actually give us? Well, it gives us a +4 to either strength or dexterity, and we get proficiency in athletics or acrobatics. Going back over here, I'm going to be a dexterity-based character, so I'm going to put that +4 into dexterity. And then we get either athletics or acrobatics. I'm going to go ahead and put it into acrobatics because I'm assuming we'll have another character in our party that can take the role of the big, tough, strong guy. For our third node out of 10, I'm going to go ahead and pick up a +4 to any stat, and I'm going to go ahead and put that into dexterity as well. For our fourth node, we'll go ahead and pick up a +1 to our proficiency bonus, and this is where we'll start seeing something interesting. My system does not start you off with any proficiency bonus. You have to pick up proficiency bonus increases to get them to any point. So right now, our proficiency bonus is at 0, but after that proficiency bonus increase we just picked up, we now have a +1 to our proficiency bonus. If we picked up another +1 to our proficiency bonus, it would be at 2. Another would be 3, 4, 5, and 6. But after 6, you'll note that these extra ones, 7 and 8, have weird triangles after them, and that is because they are locked behind a prerequisite. Basically, in order to get a +7 to your proficiency bonus, you first need to increase your maximum proficiency bonus by +1, because the maximum for any character is typically set at +6. So to get a +7, you first need to increase your maximum proficiency bonus by +1, and then get a proficiency bonus increase that brings you all the way to +7. We have got our fifth node, which I'm going to go ahead and grab a +3 to our constitution and a +3 to our charisma. +3 to constitution, and +3 to charisma. For our sixth, I'm going to go ahead and pick up our only red node we can pick up on the character, that being the knight. This gives us proficiency in persuasion or insight, and we become respected by the high class in any city that is allied with the city we were knighted in. We also get a +1 to our proficiency bonus, a +1 to strength, and a +1 to charisma. So let's go mark those down. Under our racial traits, I've written down respected by the high class of Thorndamia and their allies, because that is the city that I've chosen our character to have been knighted in. Of course, you should pick a city from which your DM would allow, and talk to your DM about that before you write it down. I'm going to go ahead and mark down insight here for the proficiency we got from knight, and we also got a +1 to our strength, a +1 to our charisma, and a +1 to our proficiency bonus. So now our proficiency bonus is at +2, which is where you'd normally start on in a typical D&D character. For our seventh node, I'm going to go ahead and pick up another +4 to any stat. This one I'll be putting into intelligence because I do plan on casting spells with intelligence on this character. 3 more nodes remain. We'll go ahead and grab a language and a +4 to any stat. The language of my choice will probably just be common so that I can speak to other people. And the +4 to any stat will also go to intelligence again. After that, we're going to grab another +1 to our proficiency bonus, bringing it all the way to a +3, which means that our proficiency bonus will be higher than most of our allies, even though we're all going to be the same level. And that is one of the dynamicities that I was talking about when I described this system. The ability for certain characters to spec higher into certain aspects of their character without being held back by certain things like this. We are overall going to probably have better stats than some of our allies, but at the cost of having lower overall strength in certain places. For example, you can get all the way to 8th level in caster by level 1 if you spec properly, but instead we've chosen to have a high proficiency bonus and have a lot of skills. And so this will come up multiple times when you're looking through the background selection features and deciding which character you want to play. And for our final node pickup on our background, we're going to get a +3 to our strength and a +3 to our dexterity. Again, marking those down, +3 to strength, and a +3 to dexterity. Now, notably, you might see these lines that go through each one of the stats. These are to determine whether you are on an odd number or an even number. So basically, we started at 5 here, and then when we go to 6, our bonus goes from a -3 to a -2. But putting a 7th dot in does not reduce the number. But once we go to 8, it does reduce it down to a modifier of -1 instead of -2. Same for going to 10. We then increase our modifier from -1 to +0. 11 does nothing. 12 gives us a +1, 13 does nothing, 14 gives us a +2, 15 does nothing, 16 gives us a +3, 17 does nothing. Which means that this character needs another +1 in dexterity if they want to have a +4 to their modifier instead of a +3. And now I have selected all of the nodes from the background selection that we've been given, 10 in total, but we also get a feat, an ability score improvement, and one more language. We of course grabbed one from over here as well, but that means our character will have 2 languages learned at the beginning of their career. For my second language, I'm just going to pick up Hinglaman because that is the languages that Hingla speak. But of course, you can pick whatever you want, and really you should talk to your DM about what kind of languages will be important for the campaign. As far as our ability score improvement goes, I'm going to go ahead and put a +1 into dexterity to bring that to a nice even 18. And we'll also go ahead and put another +1 into our wisdom because right now our wisdom is -2, and I'd like to eventually bring that at least to a 10. And we have one more thing to talk about, the fact that we gain a feat on this character as well. Every character will get at least 1 feat at the beginning of their career because the background first node always gives every character 1 feat. So let's go talk about how feats work in my system. Here's an example of the list of feats. There is of course more than just this, but I'm just using one page as an example. The feats have different numbers underneath them, and this represents the level of feat available to you. If you've played D&D before, you'll know how normal feats work, but basically think about this as an ability to take the feat multiple times to increase the power of the feat as you go. So for example, Proficient over here at level 1, so the first time you take it, will give you a +1 to your proficiency bonus. If you take it a second time, it'll give you another +1 to your proficiency bonus. But then if you take it a third time, your maximum proficiency bonus will go up by 1, which is those little triangles that you fill in like I was talking about earlier. So for our first feat, I'm going to go ahead and pick up Proficient on this character. I'm going to go ahead and write down Proficient because it's the feat that we're taking, and this is where you write down feats. And then I'm going to fill in this dot here to represent that we've taken the feat 1 time, so it is at level 1 Proficient, meaning that we get to increase our proficiency bonus by +1, which is pretty interesting. We have a +4 proficiency bonus at level 1, and if we take that feat 2 more times, we would then also be able to fill in this triangle here, meaning that once we got to +6, we could go all the way to +7 in our proficiency bonus. I also wrote down Vengeful Knight under our background section. We have everything needed to fill in our race selection and our background selection, which means the only other thing left to do is pick up our first level using the skill trees available to us for classes. Now this is a very important choice to be making with your character at level 1 because it will determine a few different things. First, we will be determining our main class, which we will write down in this left box over here. And then we will also be determining what our subclass or subclasses are going to be. Because at level 1, and only at level 1, you get to pick up 3 nodes from any classes. The first one you take will be your main class, and the other 2 you take, if they're from different classes, will be your subclasses. And so, I'm going to choose for this character, Rogue as our main class. And I'm going to go ahead and take 2 nodes in it, which means I'll only have 1 node remaining for a different class to be considered our subclass. But a few things to mark down before we even talk about anything else. Notably, the starting benefits of this first node will only be applied to your character if it is your main class, which means that I'm only going to be getting the starting benefits of Rogue because it's my main class. Also, the bottom left corner of the Rogue defines us as having a D8 hit dice and intelligence as our spell casting stat. And so I'm going to go ahead and mark down here that our hit dice size is a D8, and I'm also going to drag ourselves over here and mark intelligence as our spell casting stat of choice. That is what these little diamonds in the corners represent, meaning that for the rest of our character's career, if we ever cast a spell, we will be using intelligence to do so. And now that we've written down the benefits of choosing this as our main class, let's actually check out what we got from Rogue. Starting benefits of Rogue are 8 plus your Constitution modifier in hit points and 1 hit dice. Notably, our Constitution modifier is nothing, which means that our HP will end up being just 8. And then I'm also going to go ahead and mark down 1 hit dice because we gained 1 hit dice in the process as well. We also get proficiency in simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, short swords, light armor, thieves' tools, and 1 more set of tools, as well as dexterity and intelligence saving throws. So you can mark down your proficiencies with armor and such down here if you would like, or you can just remember it. I'm going to mark down that we have light armor proficiency down here, and I'm also going to mark down those dexterity and intelligence saving throw proficiencies over here. After marking down our saving throw proficiencies, we also got some tool proficiencies on this character, so let's mark those down in the box underneath the portrait. Those being Thieves' Tools and one tool set of our choice. Now, tool sets in my system work a little bit better than they would in the typical D&D system. Since we got Thieves' Tools proficiency, let's check out what that does. Thieves' Tools cost 25 gold pieces to buy, so we'll have to pick those up hopefully in the character creator as well, depending on how your DM does money at the beginning of games. We're allowed to either use intelligence or dexterity when we use Thieves' Tools, and we can make a Thieves' Tools check to lock or unlock a lock. If you roll a natural 1 on the Thieves' Tools, will break. Notably, since we have proficiency with these, we will be allowed to use them first of all, but also we'll be able to add our proficiency bonus to the use of the tool. And again, we can use intelligence or dexterity for those sets. Now there's 12 different tool sets, and they all have different benefits. But one that I think I'm going to take on this character as well, since we're going to be kind of a roguish character, is the Disguise Kit. This costs 20 gold pieces to pick up, and it uses either wisdom or dexterity. Our wisdom isn't the best, so we'll probably be using dexterity for rolls using this tool, and of course adding our proficiency bonus, which is pretty high because we've spec'd a lot into that proficiency bonus. This allows us to, by spending an appropriate amount of time and making a tool check, you can prepare a performance or deception check equal to the roll. Anytime you'd make one of those checks while the disguise is still on, you can use the tool check you already made for that roll. So this is a great way to basically allow us to use our dexterity for our charisma checks to sneak around or impress people. So I'm going to go ahead and mark proficiency with the Disguise Kit as well. The other thing we get from starting as a rogue is 3 proficiencies from acrobatics, athletics, deception, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, performance, persuasion, sleight of hand, and stealth. So we get 3 of those. I'm going to go ahead and really right now max out our dexterity capabilities with 2 of those being in stealth and sleight of hand. And although our wisdom is pretty poor right now, still being at a -2, if we go ahead and mark perception for our 3rd one, now we'll at least be able to add our proficiency bonus of +4, negating that -2 a little bit. The other thing we get from starting as a rogue is we get to gain another feat. That is one of the nice things about rogue starting benefits, is that you get another feat on top of whatever you got from your background. So going over to our character sheet, I'm going to go ahead and fill in that proficient 2nd level. So now we get another +1 to our proficiency bonus, and next time we want to pick up proficient as a feat, we'll be able to increase the maximum of our proficiency bonus by +1, which is pretty cool. But let's fill in that proficiency bonus to +5 now. Now that we've checked out our starting benefits, let's check out the first 2 features we got from the nodes in Rogue. We got the sneak attack ability, and we get a +1 to our sneak dice because I went this direction. Again, just like the background feature, you can select any node that you have connected to a node you have access to. So for after starting as a rogue, we have access to any of these features, and the one that I chose was this one, because mainly I want to go down this path so I can pick up a +1 to our maximum proficiency bonus. But what does sneak attack say? It says that once per turn, you can deal an extra 1d6 damage to a creature you hit with an attack, if you have advantage on the attack roll. The attack must use a finesse or ranged weapon. You don't need advantage on the attack roll if another enemy of the target is within 5 feet of it. That enemy isn't incapacitated, and you don't have disadvantage on the attack roll. And then whenever we get the +1 sneak die, it will add another 1d6 to our total sneak attack damage. Just like I said earlier, we already have a +1 sneak die, which means in total, whenever we sneak attack on this character, we'll be able to roll 2d6. And I'm going to go ahead and mark that down in the dice section of the character sheet. Under sneak attack dice, I've written down sneak attack here. We're going to go ahead and fill in 2 of the dots because that means that we have 2d6 adding to the roll. If we were to receive more of these features, we can go ahead and mark more of the dots out to fill up our collection of sneak attack dice. And now finally, I did mention that you get 3 nodes as a level 1 character, not just 2. But so far I've only taken 2 nodes in Rogue. Why would that be? Well, it is because we also are going to take a subclass. For me, I'm going to choose Thaumaturge as our subclass. This is a spellcasting character with a d6 hit dice and Charisma as its spell stat. But since it is not our main class, we will be ignoring that. We do not use a d6 for our hit dice, and we do not use Charisma as our spell stat because Rogue is our main class, not Thaumaturge. But we are going to put 1 node into Thaumaturge, our 3rd one for level 1, and this gives us Chilling Mind. It will not give us the starting benefits because, again, Thaumaturge is not our main class, it is a subclass. Chilling Mind says that our ability to draw on the arcane is powered by the chill that runs down your back. You have a pool of 2 fear dice, these are d10s, and you can gain more fear dice with the +1 FD feature. You can expend a fear dice to activate certain class features, usually paired with the casting of a spell. You regain expended fear dice at the end of a long rest, and for now, you can use Spread Terror, which says that it allows us to expend a fear dice while casting a spell that targets 1 creature, and when we do so, we select up to our proficiency bonus targets that the spell could target. Treat each as if they had had the spell cast upon them, but when you roll damage, roll only 1 instance of damage and spread it equally onto all creatures targeted. Then roll the fear die, and all creatures targeted also take psychic damage equal to the result. This is actually a very nice feature for us given that we have such a high proficiency bonus, but right now we actually have no way to use these dice because we don't have any caster levels. That will be changing as we level up although. But I am going to go ahead down here and mark down that we do have 2 fear dice, which again I have filled in right next to the dice section. So this is what our character looks like at level 1. We have a main class of Rogue, a subclass of Thaumaturge. Our initiative bonus is +4 because we have a +4 modifier to our dexterity. We have 8 maximum hit points, a d8 hit dice size, and 1 hit dice. So whenever we take short rests, we will be rolling d8s, and we have 1 hit dice to spend to roll those. Our speed is 25 feet. Our AC will be determined by the armor we wear, which I'm not going to mark down because that really depends on your character and what you're going for. But of course, we do have proficiency in light armor. We've got 2 sneak attack dice, which are d6s, which means whenever we activate sneak attack, we'll roll 2d6. And we have 2 fear dice that we currently cannot use on anything because we don't have any spellcasting. We have level 2 proficient, and our proficiency bonus is a +5. These are our stats: a +0 in constitution, a -1 in strength, a +4 to our dexterity, as well as proficiency in dexterity saves and all of the skills, a +2 to our intelligence, as well as intelligence saving throw proficiency, and intelligence is considered our spellcasting stat. Wisdom, we have a -2 to, but we do have proficiency in insight and perception. And charisma, we have a +0 in, and we have no proficiencies in any of the charisma skills. We also notably have Thieves' Tools and Disguise Kit tool proficiencies, which means we'll be adding that nice +5 to any rolls using those tools. And that is how you make a level 1 character. I picked Rogue as my main class and Thaumaturge as my subclass, but there are 38 different classes available to choose from as your main class, and you can have up to 2 subclasses. I chose to put an extra node into Rogue instead of picking a second one, but you could, for example, have picked Rogue as your main class, Thaumaturge as one of your subclasses, and Bard as your second subclass. And that is a totally legal way to go about doing things. Or you could just go all the way in and have Rogue be your main class and put all 3 of those starting nodes into Rogue by itself. All these options are totally valid and have great benefits depending on what kind of character you want to play. But of course, I have got to talk about how to level up next. There are technically 4 different ways to level up in DST. Now that might sound like a lot given that in D&D you think there's only one way, but in D&D there's technically also 2 ways to level up. In D&D you can level up by leveling up your main class, or you can multiclass and choose a new class. Those are the 2 methods for leveling up in D&D. But in DST, D&D skill trees, there is 2 other methods. The first two methods are very similar. They are main class leveling and subclass leveling. So for main class leveling and subclass leveling, you do the exact same thing, just choosing either your main class or your subclass. So if I wanted a subclass level here, I would go to the thaumaturge list and do the same thing, but instead I'm main class leveling, so I'm going to be doing it on the rogue. When you level up a character, you always look at the class that you're leveling and use their hit dice to add to the maximum of your hit dice. So since I'm leveling up in rogue here, I'll be rolling a d8 hit dice. Rolled a 1, that's unfortunate. And be adding that to my maximum hit points. So we now have 9 hit points in total, and we will also have 2 hit dice, because every time you level up, you'll be getting the hit dice of the character you leveled up in. So for rogue, that's 1 extra hit dice, and we rolled a d8, which came out unfortunately at a 1, giving us 9 total hit points at level 2. The other thing you get to do is select 2 new nodes. Like I said, on level 1 you get 3, but every level afterwards you only get to pick 2 new nodes. So for level 2, I'm going to go ahead and pick Skilled, which is again connected to the sneak attack dice I had from earlier, and then another sneak attack dice which is connected to Skilled, which I just picked up. Again, I could not just like randomly pick up over here one of these nodes, because I would first have to make my way through the path or the branch to get to that feature by selecting each node that's on the way. But what does Skilled give us? It lets us pick 2 skills to gain proficiency in. So I will go do that on our character sheet, as well as mark down the extra sneak attack dice that we just picked up. So going over to sneak attack, I'm going to fill in a 3rd dot. So now we roll 3d6 whenever we sneak attack with. And we get 2 more proficiencies of our choice. I'm going to go ahead and mark down investigation. Our deception checks and our performance checks can be made with our tool proficiency if we have a little time to prepare, but we do not have any persuasion capabilities right now, so I'm going to go ahead and mark down proficiency in persuasion for that second markdown. Now notably, I just want to bring up before moving on that if I instead subclass leveled, it would be exactly the same. I would pick 2 nodes from thaumaturge, and instead of rolling a d8, I would be rolling a d6 for my hit dice, and in the exact same manner as every other character, add my constitution modifier and then add that to my HP total. But that would not change the size of my hit dice. It would still be a d8 for when I roll hit dice on short rests, recovering hit points. Or if any other feature represents my hit dice in some way, our hit dice will always be considered a d8 while we have rogue as our main class. But rolling for a level up maximum hit points, we roll the size of the class we leveled up in. So if I were to have chosen a thaumaturge subclass level instead, it would be a d6 that I would have been rolling. But that is our character at level 2. Not much has changed, but we're going to go ahead and swing ourselves right into level 3 and explain another way you can level up in this system, the 3rd method, multi-class leveling. This is exactly the same as in regular D&D leveling, where you basically pick a class you have no levels in currently and start taking nodes in them. For us, I've chosen Fighter as our multi-class. Now, they have a d10 hit dice, so let's go ahead and roll a d10. Ooh, nice, I rolled a 9. So now we will go ahead and mark down that we have a 3rd hit dice. Again, they will be considered d8s for short resting, but since I rolled a 9 and have no constitution modifier, I'll be adding 9 to our max HP, bringing us up to 18 total hit points. Next, I get to pick 2 nodes from Fighter. Now again, I will not be gaining the starting benefits, and I have to start at the starting node, but after that I can go in whichever direction I would like, either picking this feat, or this ability score improvement, which is the one I've actually gone ahead and chosen. So we get the second wind ability, and we get an ability score improvement. Second wind says on your turn, you can use a bonus action to regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus half your nodes in Fighter. And then once you use this feature, you must finish a short or long rest before we can use it again. But this is a nice way to get a little bit of healing on a character that really is wanting more hit points. Notably, we currently have 2 nodes in Fighter, so it'll be a d10 plus 1. The other thing we got from that was a ability score improvement, an ASI. Now I talked about this in the background selection as well, but an ASI is either a +1 to 2 different stats or a +2 to 1 stat. And since I am right on the edge of a 20 dexterity, I think it's time we max that out. So putting this all the way to 20. Now you might note, just like the proficiency bonus from earlier, these skill stats also have these triangles on the +5 and +6 sections. That is because a character is typically has a hard cap at 20 for their skill progression. Right now, dexterity is our highest stat. We have a 20 in it, meaning we have a +5 modifier to the skill. But if we wanted to get to 21 score, or even 22 to give us a +6, we would first have to increase the cap of this skill by +1 and +2, so that we could fill in these dots with another ability score improvement or something similar to give us a +6 total. But for now, we are locked at 20. And this does mean that we now have a +5 to our initiative bonus because our dexterity modifier went up. And so this is our character at level 3. But we're going to go 2 more levels to show off one more method for leveling up and one more interesting synergy that comes with this system. Starting off, I want to explain the 4th and final method that you can use to level up in the DST system. This is called split leveling, and it's what separates a multiclass from a subclass. So currently, our main class is Rogue, and our subclass is Thaumaturge. This will never change throughout the character's career because we locked those in at level 1. But why are they called these things? It's because of split leveling. Main class Rogue is very important for not only the starting benefits and determining our hit dice size, as well as the stat that we're using to cast spells, that being intelligence. But the other feature of a main class is that you can split class level your main class with one of your subclasses. So for Mira, we can split class level Rogue and Thaumaturge together since she only has one subclass. So for level 4, I'm going to go ahead and take 1 node in Rogue, that being expertise right here, and 1 node in Thaumaturge, that being fearful spells here. Now, why was I allowed to do that? That is because Thaumaturge is our subclass and Rogue is our main class. So it allows us to split up the 2 nodes we get from leveling up between the 2 classes. What is the benefit of this? Well, the benefit is the fact that even though we're putting nodes into Thaumaturge, we are not going to be rolling the d6 hit dice of the Thaumaturge. We instead roll our main class hit dice every time we split level. So if our main class was, for example, Barbarian, and we were split leveling Barbarian and Thaumaturge, we would be rolling a d12 even though Thaumaturge has a d6 hit dice, because Barbarian was our main class. But for Mira's example here, Rogue is our main class, which means let's roll a d8 and add that to our total maximum hit points. I rolled a 5, so we'll be running 5 plus our Constitution modifier of +0, which means we now have a total HP of 23. We will also get to mark down 1 more hit dice because we are now level 4. And let's check out what those features we got from Rogue and Thaumaturge do. For Rogue, we picked up Expertise, which says we get to choose 2 of our skill proficiencies or 1 of our skill proficiencies and our proficiency with Thieves' Tools. For those skills, our proficiency bonus is doubled for ability checks made to use those, which is really nice. And how will we mark this down on our character sheet? Well, you'll note that every single one of the skills has a second dot to the top left of it, and this is to bring about if you have expertise in the skill. So for me, I think stealth is something we should definitely have expertise in. So now whenever we roll stealth, we'll not only be rolling with +5, but we'll be rolling with +5, +5, +5, because our proficiency bonus is doubled, which means our modifier and the lowest thing we could roll on a stealth check is 16, and that's at level 4. And the other one that I'm going to put expertise in is perception, because our wisdom is really crappy, but I'd still like to be able to see things good. So now that we're adding a +10 to our roll, the -2 really doesn't feel that big of a deal, because a normal character that maxes out wisdom is probably going to have around a +8 right now anyway. And we have a -2 and we still get our nice +8, which is super fun. The other thing we picked up was fearful spells on the Thaumaturge skill tree. This says that we gain access to the Thaumaturge spell list. We get a +1 to our caster level, and we learn 2 cantrips. We're considered a spontaneous caster, and will gain 4 known spells from any list we have access to. What did any of that mean, you might be asking, because it's not necessarily easy to understand if you don't know the system yet, but I'm going to break it down for you. First, we gained access to the Thaumaturge spell list. Basically, in the DST system, there are a bunch of different spell lists. There's the Wizard spell list, the Thaumaturge spell list, the Cleric spell list, the Druid spell list, the Artificer spell list, the Paladin spell list, the Ranger spell list, and the Mystic spell list, and the Sorcerer spell list. So a character can at any given time have access to any of those spell lists. Right now, Mira only has access to the Thaumaturge spell list, which means that she can access any spell on that list whenever she's prompted to. So in this situation, we gained a +1 to our caster level, and we learned 2 cantrips. We will be learning those 2 cantrips from the Thaumaturge spell list because it's the only spell list we have access to. So we'll go through the Thaumaturge spell list and pick any 2 cantrips that we think are cool. I'm not going to actually do that in this character build right now because you would obviously be the one making all those choices, and this is just an example video. We're also considered a spontaneous caster. This means that we do not prepare spells, but we instead gain known spells, which means that right now we get 4 known spells from the Thaumaturge spell list because it's the only list we have access to. So as Mira, we would go through and look through all of the Thaumaturge spells and pick 4 that we think are cool. Now earlier I was talking about the fact that we have no way to cast anything yet. Well, that is now changed because we gained a +1 to our caster level. What does that mean? Well, if we come over here to the caster level chart, we can find out. Basically, this is a level chart that goes from level 1 all the way to level 35. Right now, we only have a 1 in caster, which means that we will have 2 first level spell slots. If we were to gain another +1 to our caster level, we would go to level 2 in caster, and we would have 3 first level spell slots. And this continues all the way down to the point where if you are a level 35 caster, you'd have 6 first level spells, 5 second level spell slots, 4 third levels, 4 fourth levels, 4 fifth levels, 3 sixth levels, 3 seventh levels, 2 eighth levels, and 2 ninth level spell slots, which is extremely powerful, but right now we are very weak with our simple 2 first level spell slots. But we do get to pick up to 4 different Thaumaturge spells from the Thaumaturge spell list, and all of those could be level 1 spells, allowing us to have a variety of spells we could cast on our character. And because we gain a +1 to our caster level, I'm going to go ahead and mark that down here under caster level. And of course, after filling in our caster level, we will mark down that we have a spell save DC of 15, because now we actually might need to access that number because we can actually cast spells. Now, how do we determine a spell save DC? Just like normal D&D. It's 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your spell casting modifier. Our spell casting modifier is intelligence, and we have a +2 on that, which means that it'll be 10 plus our proficiency bonus, which is +5. So 15 is our spell save DC. And this is our character at level 4. I'm going to level up one more time to show some fun synergies that you can pick out on characters by using my system. Going to Fighter. We're going to level up Fighter for our 5th level. Again, this is a multi-class level we'll be taking, and we'll be getting a D10 to roll for our hit dice. I rolled a 5, so I'll be adding 5 plus our Constitution modifier of +0 to our maximum HP, bringing us up to 28, and we also get 1 more hit dice. Again, for short rest, these will always be D8s. Even though we took a multi-class level in Fighter twice, the main class will always determine our short rest rolled hit dice. We then get to pick up 2 nodes from Fighter. I'm going to go ahead and pick up this feat here, and Great Warrior. I'll explain the feat in a second, but first I'm going to read Great Warrior. Great Warrior says that when we are wielding a heavy weapon, we add our proficiency bonus to the damage of attacks made with it. Now, this is really cool because we have such a high proficiency bonus. But we also are rolling 3d6 every time we sneak attack, and in order to sneak attack, we need to be using a finesse weapon, which means that these seem like they're incompatible with each other, right? These features can't possibly combine in some way. Well, keep in mind we also gain a feat, so let's check out the feat that I'm picking up here. Instead of increasing our proficient feat to max level 3, so we have a maximum proficiency bonus increase, I'm instead going to go over to the other feats section and pick up level 1 of Master of Techniques. This says that when you take this feat, choose one of the following qualities: finesse, thrown, versatile D10, two-handed, strung, or reach. Whenever we use a weapon or make an unarmed strike, the quality chosen can be considered a quality of that weapon. So now, whether you want to be a rogue that uses a greatsword, or wielding a short sword as a heavy weapon, you get to both activate sneak attack and Great Warrior on our attacks. For example, here I'm going to probably pick Finesse as the Master of Techniques that we pick up. I'm going to mark down Master of Techniques down here, filling it in as level 1. We could pick up its second level later if we really felt like it. But notably, this now means that our Mira here can wield a great sword, and it's considered a finesse weapon while she uses it, meaning she can still activate sneak attack, adding both 3d6 to the damage as well as +5 because of her proficiency bonus. Editing dex popping in to just remind you that heavy weapon wielding when you have a 13 or less strength means you have disadvantage on using the weapons attacks, so you're probably going to want to instead use just like a short sword or a dagger or whatever you were using originally, and for the Master of Techniques, pick up heavy as considered a quality of that weapon, which means that you won't still have disadvantage on those attacks. Or you could pick up the Bloodthirsty feat during one of your previous feat pickups so that you do not have disadvantage on heavy weapons either way. Just thought I'd bring that up because I forgot to mention it in the video. I'm just going to go through everything that we talked about one more time in a quick run through. Our name is in the top left corner. Underneath it is our proficiency bonus, which can go up to 6 before you need to increase the maximum proficiency bonus to get it past such. We do not have Constitution saving throw proficiency, and our modifier is +0. We do not have the saving throw or the skill of strength proficiency in, and we have a -1 to our modifier. Our dexterity has every skill with proficiency, including the saving throw, and we have expertise in stealth, meaning we'll be adding double our proficiency modifier, as well as our +5 20 score in dexterity. We have proficiency in the saving throw, and we have proficiency in investigation, as well as a +2 modifier, and it is considered Mira's spellcasting modifier. We do not have wisdom saving throw proficiencies. We do have proficiency in insight, and we have expertise in perception, as well as a -2 to our wisdom modifier. Our charisma modifier is +0, and we have persuasion proficiency. Our feats, we have 2 levels in proficient and 1 level in master of techniques. We have proficiency in thieves tools and a disguise kit. Our AC will be determined by our armor, which I never chose for this character, but of course if you were playing a similar character, you would probably want to do so. Our name is Dextorg. Our background is a vengeful knight. Our race is a village hingla, size medium, height 4 feet 3 inches, weight 122 pounds. Our main class is Rogue, which determined our D8 hit dice size and the fact that we cast with intelligence. Our subclass is Thaumaturge, which we leveled up via split class leveling for caster levels. We have a speed of 25 feet. Our initiative bonus is +5. We have 5 hit dice, 28 maximum HP, a caster level of +1, 3 sneak attack dice, 2 fear dice, which we can now use on either of those first level spells that we have because of caster level 1. Our spell save DC is 15. We have light armor proficiency, and we have echolocation of 60 feet. The ability to focus to hear up to 200 feet away, the ability to reroll natural 1s and take a new result, and we were respected by the high class of Thorndamia and all their allies. And that is a level 5 character using the DST system. Your character could look vastly different than mine, and all of your choices will be felt in the long run because of how much customizability that this system has for making a character. If you enjoyed the video and found it useful, I would love if you gave me a like or subscribed for more. I have linked in the description the Google Doc that has all of the information you need, including a Word document that has a step-by-step instruction on everything I just talked about. So if you want to refresh your mind or read it instead of listening to my voice, you can do so there. I also have linked a playlist of every single class that I have gone into full detail discussing so far. I've been trying to get these out as quickly as possible, where I basically do a rundown explaining every single feature available to every single class, deciding which features you want to pick out from each class. I also have in that same playlist a few tier list videos. One is a tier list of every single feat and a tier list of all the starting benefits from each class. I also plan to make a tier list for all the races and maybe even a tier list of some of the background options if people find that interesting. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.